Captain Du Young stood at the bridge of the Earth exploration vessel, Horizon, his eyes fixed on the main screen. The ship's sensors had picked up something unusual on the colony world below, something that didn't match any known patterns of the peaceful marine species that lived there. "Captain, we're getting more distress signals," Officer Yu Jin reported, her fingers moving quickly across the control panel. Do Young's jaw tightened. This was supposed to be a routine diplomatic visit to check on one of humanity's newest alien allies. Instead, they had arrived to find a massacre in progress. "Show me the thermal imaging," he ordered. The screen shifted, revealing dozens of heat signatures moving through the colony with frightening speed and precision. They weren't random attacks. This was a coordinated hunt. Dr. Hansel, the ship's chief scientist, leaned forward at his station. "Sir, you need to see this," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "These hunters, they're using advanced technology. Energy weapons, cloaking devices, even gravity manipulators." The bridge crew watched in horror as one of the heat signatures disappeared into thin air, only to reappear behind a group of fleeing Marins. The attack that followed was swift and brutal. "These aren't pirates or raiders," Du Young said quietly. "This is something else entirely." He turned to his tactical officer. "Can we get a visual?" The screen zoomed in on one of the attackers. The creature stood nearly 3 meters tall, covered in natural armor plating that seemed to shimmer with an organic metallic sheen. Its 4 arms each carried different weapons, and a sophisticated helmet covered its head, multiple sensors glowing ominously. "By the stars," Security Chief Sun Mai whispered. "They're wearing their technology like it's part of them." Do Young made his decision. "Battle stations," he commanded. "We're not letting them continue this hunt." The Horizon's engines roared to life as they descended into the atmosphere. The hunters noticed the ship's approach, but instead of fleeing, they seemed interested. Several of them turned their weapons toward the sky, clearly eager for a new challenge. "They're not afraid," Hansol observed, analyzing their behavior. "Look at their formation. They're treating us like new prey." Do Young smiled grimly. "Then they're about to learn a very important lesson about humans. We don't make good prey." He turned to his weapons officer. "Target their positions with non-lethal suppression fire. Let's see how they handle a taste of their own medicine." The Horizon's defensive systems activated, launching a barrage of electromagnetic pulses designed to disrupt their technology. The hunters scattered, clearly surprised by the tactical choice. They had expected simple weapon fire, not a calculated attack against their equipment. "Their cloaking devices are failing," Yu Jin reported with satisfaction. "Shields at 92%. Their return fire isn't even scratching us." The hunters tried to regroup, but the Horizon's crew had already analyzed their tactics. Every time they attempted to use their advanced hunting techniques, they found themselves countered by human ingenuity. When they tried to use their gravity manipulators to scale buildings, the ship's gravitational countermeasures sent them tumbling. When they attempted to use their cloaking devices, the Horizon's thermal sensors tracked them easily. After 20 minutes of failed attacks, the hunters did something unexpected. They gathered together and stood their ground, weapons lowered. "They're sending a signal," Hansol announced. It's an acknowledgement of superior tactical ability. They're not surrendering, but they're recognizing us as equals." Do Young stepped forward, studying the creatures on the screen. "Send them a message back. Tell them that Earth now considers this world under its protection. If they want to hunt here again, they'll have to go through us first." The hunters received the message, and their response was immediate. They activated their transport technology and disappeared, leaving behind only the evidence of their attack and a clear message. Humanity had just announced its presence to the galaxy's apex predators. As the Horizon's crew began rescue operations for the surviving Marins, Du Young knew this was just the beginning. "Send a message to Earth Command," he ordered. "Tell them we've made first contact with a species of advanced hunters. And tell them," he paused, looking at the destruction below, "tell them we're going to need bigger ships." The message was sent, and as the sun set on the colony world, humanity had unknowingly taken its first step toward becoming the galaxy's most feared species, not for their savagery, but for their ability to stand up to the creatures that had terrorized the stars for centuries. The hunters had finally found their match, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 weeks after the first encounter with the hunters, Dr. Hansol sat in his laboratory aboard the Horizon, surrounded by holographic displays of data. He hadn't slept properly in days, too fascinated by what he was discovering about these creatures, now officially named the Ravagers by Earth Command. "Play the combat footage again," he said to his computer, the air filled with images of the hunters fighting on the Marin colony. Hansol leaned forward, his eyes fixed on their movements. The laboratory door opened, and military strategist Kita walked in. "Tell me you found something useful," he said, placing a cup of coffee next to the scientist. Hansol nodded eagerly. "Look at this," he said, pointing to one of the displays. "Their armor isn't just technology. It's partially grown. They bond with their equipment at a biological level. That's why they move so naturally with it." Keita stepped closer, his military mind already working on the implications. "Can we use that against them?" "Better." Hansol switched to another display. Their biological connection to their technology is also their biggest weakness. When our electromagnetic pulses disrupted their equipment, we weren't just shutting down their weapons, we were causing them physical discomfort. As they talked, more data came in from other human ships that had encountered the Ravagers. Reports showed attacks on 15 different alien species across the galaxy. Each time, the pattern was the same. They hunted not just for food or resources, but for the thrill of the chase. They're not mindless killers, Kite realized, studying the attack patterns. They're sports hunters. They follow rules, have specific hunting seasons, and even keep trophies. Hansol pulled up another hologram, this one showing the internal structure of Ravager armor recovered from the battlefield. And look at this, their technology is centuries ahead of ours in some ways. But they only use it for hunting. They could have wiped out entire civilizations, but instead, they treat it all like some giant game preserve. The door opened again, and Captain Du Young entered. He looked tired but determined. "What have you found?" Keita stepped forward. "Sir, we believe we can predict their next targets. They follow specific patterns in choosing their hunting grounds. They prefer species that have just developed space travel, like the Marins." "And there's more," Hansol added excitedly. "Their hunting parties are small because they value individual glory. They would rather lose a hunt than win through overwhelming numbers. It's part of their code." Do Young nodded slowly. "So they're predictable. They follow patterns. That's something we can use." He turned to Keita. "How are the new defense protocols coming along?" Keita brought up a tactical display. "We're adapting, sir. Every ship in the fleet is being equipped with enhanced electromagnetic pulse weapons. We're also developing new shield frequencies that can detect their cloaked approaches." "But here's the most interesting part," Hansol interrupted, unable to contain his excitement. "Look at the data from their attempt to communicate with us. They didn't see us as prey. They recognized us as equals because we outmaneuvered them. No other species has ever done that." Do Young considered this information. "So they respect strength and cunning. That's why they backed down instead of calling for reinforcements. We didn't just survive their hunt. We impressed them." The three men stood in silence for a moment, letting the implications sink in. Humanity had unknowingly passed some sort of test, and now they had the attention of the galaxy's most dangerous predators. "Sir," Keita said, "reports are coming in from the Centauri colonies. They've spotted Ravager scout ships at the edge of their systems." Do Young's expression hardened. "They're testing our defenses, seeing if the Marin colony was a fluke." He turned to Hansol. "How long until you can have a full analysis of their technological weaknesses?" "Give me 48 hours, Hansol replied. "I'm close to understanding how their neural interfaces work. If we can disrupt those effectively, we might be able to turn every piece of their advanced technology into a liability. Do-young nodded. Good, because I don't think they're going to wait much longer before they try to hunt us directly. He looked at the tactical display showing the positions of Earth's defense fleet. And when they do, we need to be ready to show them that humans aren't just worthy opponents. We're apex predators ourselves. As the captain left the laboratory, Hansel and Kita shared a determined look. The next encounter with the Ravagers would be different. This time, humanity would be prepared. This time, they would show these ancient hunters that they had finally met their match in the species they had mistaken for simple prey. The red dust of Mars swirled outside the colony's reinforced windows. Security Chief Sun Mai stood in the control room of New Armstrong Base, watching the storm approach. Movement detected in Sector 7. A young operator called out. 3 heat signatures. No 5. They're using the storm as cover. Sun Mai smiled. The Ravagers had finally come, just as Earth Command had predicted. But this time, humans were ready for them. Send the alert, she ordered. Begin Operation Sandtrap. Across the Martian colony, lights dimmed and doors sealed. The colonists had practiced this drill dozens of times. Every man, woman, and child knew exactly where to go and what to do. This wasn't just a defense, it was a trap. Ravager hunting party has crossed the outer marker, another operator reported. They're approaching the mining complex. Sun Mai picked up her tablet, watching as the plan unfolded. The Ravagers moved with their usual confidence, their advanced armor protecting them from the harsh Martian environment. They probably thought the storm would hide their approach, not realizing that human thermal imaging had been specifically calibrated for Mars conditions. They've taken the bait, Sun Mai said into her communicator. All units, prepare for Phase 2. The Ravagers had reached the mining complex, finding it seemingly abandoned. Their heat signatures showed them spreading out, searching for prey. They didn't realize they were being watched not just from the control room, but from dozens of hidden bunkers throughout the complex. Now, Sun Mai commanded. The trap was sprung. Powerful electromagnets hidden in the walls activated, their fields tuned to the exact frequency that Dr. Hansel had discovered would disrupt Ravager armor. The hunters stumbled, their biological connections to their equipment, sending waves of discomfort through their bodies. But this was just the beginning. The Martian storm, which the Ravagers had thought would help them, suddenly grew stronger. Hidden weather control stations around the complex increased the wind speed, filling the air with red dust that had been specially treated with particles that stuck to Ravager cloaking technology. They're visible, an operator reported excitedly. Cloaking systems are failing. The Ravagers tried to regroup, but their usual coordination was broken. Their neural interfaces were scrambled, their advanced weapons malfunctioning. For the first time, these apex predators knew what it felt like to be helpless. That's when the humans emerge. From hidden bunkers and underground passages, colonial defense forces appeared wearing specially designed armor. Unlike the Ravagers' biological interfaces, these suits were completely mechanical, immune to the electromagnetic disruption. Remember the plan. Sun Mai said over the command channel. Disable and capture. We want them alive. The battle that followed was unlike anything in human history. The Ravagers fought with desperate fury, but their usual advantages were gone. Their energy weapons flickered and died. Their gravity manipulators sent them bouncing randomly across the complex. Their armor, usually so responsive, felt heavy and clumsy. The colonial forces moved in with precision, using weapons designed to incapacitate rather than kill. Stun nets caught 2 Ravagers as they tried to reach higher ground. Another was brought down by targeted EMP bursts that overloaded its neural interfaces. In the control room, Sun Mai watched as the last 2 Ravagers made a final stand. These creatures, who had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, were now backing away from advancing human troops. The hunters had become the hunted. Offer them surrender, she commanded. The message was transmitted in the Ravagers' own language. a courtesy made possible by Dr. Hansol's research. For a long moment, the two aliens stood their ground, their damaged armor sparking in the dust-filled air. Then, slowly, they lowered their weapons. The storm began to die down as colonial forces moved in to secure their prisoners. Sun Mai let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. They had done it. Humanity had not just survived a Ravager hunt, they had captured an entire hunting party. "Send word to Earth Command," she ordered. "Tell them Operation Sandtrap was a complete success. 5 Ravagers captured, no human casualties." As the message was sent, Sunma looked at the aliens being led to secure holding cells. These weren't just prisoners. They were proof that humanity could outthink and outfight the galaxy's most feared predators. The first real victory against the Ravagers had been won, not through superior technology or strength, but through human ingenuity, preparation, and teamwork. The galaxy was about to learn that Earth wasn't just another hunting ground. It was home to a species that could turn any planet, even Mars, into a trap for those who dared to hunt them. Ambassador Taiwan sat at the grand table in the Galactic Council chamber, surrounded by representatives from 20 different alien species. The room buzzed with nervous energy. News of humanity's capture of 5 Ravagers had spread quickly, and not everyone was happy about it. "You don't understand what you've done," the Maran representative said, his crystalline body flickering with worried colors. "The Ravagers will seek revenge. They will come for all of us." Taiwan remained calm. "The Ravagers were already hunting your people," he said. "At least now we have a way to fight back." In another part of the Mars colony, Dr. Jai Yun walked slowly past the holding cells where the captured Ravagers were kept. Each cell was specially designed based on Dr. Hansol's research, with fields that prevented their neural interfaces from working properly. She stopped at the cell of the largest Ravager, the one the humans had started calling Alpha. Unlike the others who raged and fought against their containment, this one watched everything with careful attention. "You're learning about us, aren't you?" she said softly, "just as we're learning about you." Back in the council chamber, the debate grew heated. The Zorn representative, a being of pure energy contained in a mechanical suit, spoke up. "Humanity has only been in space for 50 years. What gives you the right to challenge the natural order? The Ravagers have ruled the hunting grounds for millennia." Taiwan stood up slowly. "Natural order?" he asked. "There is nothing natural about allowing predators to terrorize civilized species. On Earth, we learned long ago that strength brings responsibility." Meanwhile, Jai Yun had made a breakthrough. She played videos for Alpha showing human history, how they had evolved from hunters themselves, how they had learned to protect weaker species, how they had turned their predatory instincts into a drive to explore and discover. To her surprise, Alpha showed signs of understanding. The Ravager made gestures that their translators interpreted as questions, wanting to know more about how humans had changed from hunters to protectors while still maintaining their strength. In the council chamber, the argument reached a critical point. "The Ravagers will come in force now," the Maran representative warned. "They will not stop until they have destroyed the humans who dared to trap them." Taiwan smiled. "Let me show you something," he said, activating a holographic display. It showed the Mars colony defenses, the new electromagnetic weapons being installed on ships, the protective systems being shared with other species. "We humans have a saying," he continued. "Knowledge shared is knowledge multiplied." We're not just defending ourselves, we're teaching others how to defend themselves too. On Mars, Jai Yun made another discovery. She noticed Alpha watching the colony's children playing in a protected area. The Ravager's vital signs showed surprise and curiosity. "You never considered that prey species could be interesting, did you?" she asked. "That they could have cultures worth learning about." Alpha made a series of clicks and growls that the translator interpreted. "Your kind fights well, but chooses not to hunt the weak. This is new thinking." Back in the council chamber, Taiwan played his final card. "We invite any species who wishes to learn our defense techniques to send representatives to Earth. We will teach you everything we know about fighting the Ravagers." The chamber erupted in surprised discussion. No species had ever freely shared military technology before. The very idea went against millennia of galactic tradition. "And what do you want in return?" the Zorn representative asked suspiciously. "Alliance," Taiwan answered simply, "because what's coming next will require all of us working together." As if to prove his point, emergency alerts began flashing across the chamber screens. Long-range sensors had detected a massive fleet of Ravager ships entering the galaxy's outer rim. In her lab on Mars, Jai-Yun saw Alpha's reaction to the news. To her surprise, the Ravager seemed troubled. "Your kind has courage," Alpha communicated. "The coming hunt will be great, but perhaps there is more honor in alliance than prey." As alerts sounded across human space, Taiwan's words to the Council seemed to echo across the galaxy. "The time of being prey is over. Now we teach the hunters what it means to face equals." The galaxy stood at a turning point. Humanity had not just captured a few Ravagers. They had challenged the very foundations of galactic society. The real question was, were they ready for what would come next? Commander Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the stealth ship, Shadow Step, watching the stars through the viewport. His ship was hidden in the tail of a comet, waiting. 3 days ago, they had detected a Ravager hunting party entering this system. Now it was time to show them how humans hunted. "Target spotted," Officer Yu Jin whispered from her tactical station. "They're approaching the colony on the 4th planet, just as predicted." Hyunwoo nodded. The colony below was empty. A trap set up with holograms and heat signatures to attract Ravager attention. The real colonists had been evacuated days ago. "All ships, execute pattern strike," he ordered quietly. Across the system, 5 other human ships emerged from their hiding places. One rose from the ocean of a frozen moon. Another appeared from within a dense asteroid field. A third switched off its cloaking device in the shadow of a gas giant. The Ravager ships didn't notice them at first. They were too focused on their intended prey below. This was exactly what Yu Jin had predicted when she designed this new hunting strategy. "They're entering the atmosphere," an officer reported. "Their shields are configured for atmospheric entry." "Perfect," Hyunwoo said. Now, all 6 human ships fired at once. Their weapons had been specially designed based on data from the captured Ravagers. Each shot targeted the exact frequencies that would disrupt the Ravagers' neural interfaces with their ships. The effect was immediate. The Ravager vessels jerked and spun, their pilots suddenly unable to control their ships properly. Several tried to return fire, but their targeting systems were scrambled by the human attack. "Second wave," Hyunwoo commanded. More human ships appeared, these ones emerging from underground bases on the colony below. The Ravagers found themselves caught in a 3-dimensional trap, with enemies above, below, and all around them. "They're trying to send a distress signal," Yu Jin reported with a smile. "But we're blocking all frequencies they use." The Ravagers attempted to flee, but each escape route had been carefully blocked. Every time they tried to jump to faster than light speed, they found their engines disrupted by carefully placed human energy fields. "This is Commander Hyunwoo of Earth Forces," he broadcast on all frequencies. "Your hunting grounds are now under human protection. Surrender or be disabled." The Ravagers responded with a burst of weapons fire, but their shots went wild, disrupted by the human ship's electronic warfare systems. Yu Jin had studied their weapon designs for months, finding every weakness. "They're splitting up," an officer called out, "trying to escape individually." Hyunwoo shook his head. "Predictable. Execute containment pattern." Small, fast human ships shot out from their larger vessels. These ships were new, designed specifically for chasing down Ravager vessels. They were piloted by Earth's best spacefighters, many of whom had been fighter pilots in the atmosphere of Earth. The battle that followed was short but intense. 2 Ravager ships were disabled by targeted EMP bursts. A third crashed on the colony's surface, its crew captured by waiting ground forces. The fourth and fifth tried to hide in the asteroid field, but human ships had been waiting there for hours. Last ship is making a run for the outer system, Yujin reported. Let it go, Hyunwoo ordered. That one will tell others what happened here. As his crew secured their prisoners, Hyunwoo received a message from Earth Command. Similar operations had been successful in 3 other systems. For the first time in their history, the Ravagers were learning what it felt like to be hunted. Sir, Yujin said, looking up from her station. The prisoners. They're asking to speak with us. What are they saying? Hyunwoo asked. They say we hunt better than they do. They want to know how we learned their techniques so quickly. Hyunwoo smiled. Tell them it's simple. Humans were prey animals once, long ago. We had to learn to outthink bigger predators to survive. Now we're teaching the galaxy's greatest hunters what it means to be outsmarted. As the Shadow Steppe headed home with its prisoners, news of the victory spread across human space. The Ravagers weren't invincible after all. They could be beaten, trapped, and captured by those they had once considered mere prey. But more importantly, they could be taught. Each captured Ravager was a chance to show them a different way of life. And slowly, one hunt at a time, humanity was changing the galaxy's most feared predators into something new. Potential allies who respected strength and cunning as much as they did. Dr. Jae-yun walked through the newly built Ravager Rehabilitation Center on Mars, reading reports on her tablet. 6 months had passed since the first captures, and things were changing faster than anyone had expected. Doctor, Security Officer Min Seo called out. 8-Claw is asking for you again. He says he has more questions about Earth's history. Jae-yun smiled. 8-Claw, named for the distinctive pattern on his armor, had become their most enthusiastic learner. He was one of the younger Ravagers captured in recent raids, and his curiosity about human culture seemed endless. She found him in the education center, watching a video about ancient human civilizations. His massive form was hunched forward, completely focused on the screen. Your people fought many wars, 8-Claw said through the translator when he noticed her. But then you chose to stop, even though you were strong. This is difficult to understand. We learned that there are better ways to prove strength than fighting. Jae-yun explained, sitting down nearby. Ways that let both sides grow stronger together. In another part of the facility, Min Seo watched older Ravagers studying human military history. They were particularly interested in stories of human special forces, small teams completing impossible missions through careful planning and teamwork. Your warriors remind me of our best hunters, one Ravager commented. But you hunt for protection, not trophies. This has honor. The change in the Ravagers had started slowly. First, they had been surprised by human technology, designed specifically to counter their hunting methods. Then, they had been impressed by human tactical thinking. But what really caught their attention was human culture. Show me again about your sports, 8-Claw asked Jae-yun. These games where you compete without killing. They are like hunting. But everyone lives to hunt again. Jae-yun pulled up videos of Olympic competitions, soccer matches, and other sports. 8-Claw watched with growing excitement as humans competed fiercely, but helped their opponents up after victories. Your people understand challenge, he said. You create artificial hunts that test skills but build bonds between hunters and prey. This is wise. In the security office, Min Seo received reports from other rehabilitation centers across human space. Everywhere, younger Ravagers were showing the same curiosity and desire to learn. Some had even started teaching human security teams about their own technology, helping to improve the very defenses used to capture them. Doctor, 8-Claw said suddenly, I wish to send a message to my people. Will you help me? Jae-yun looked surprised but nodded. 8-Claw had earned their trust over the months. They brought him to a secure communication room, where he could broadcast to the Ravager fleet that still hunted in nearby systems. Brothers, he spoke in his native language, which the humans now understood. I have discovered something more valuable than any hunt. The humans do not just fight well. They understand the true meaning of strength. They are willing to teach us, to make us stronger in ways we never knew existed. The response came several hours later. Some Ravager ships wanted to attack immediately, angry at what they saw as weakness. But others, especially younger hunters, were curious. How had humans gone from prey to teachers so quickly? We're receiving requests. Min Seo reported to Jai Yun. 3 Ravager hunting parties are asking permission to visit the rehabilitation center. They say they want to learn. Jai Yun found 8 Claw in the facility's garden, a place he visited often. He was watching human children play safely behind protective fields, their laughter echoing across the dome. Your people are changing us, he said quietly. Not with weapons or force, but with ideas. Some will resist, but others will see what I have seen. That the greatest hunt is the hunt for knowledge, for understanding. As she watched this former predator peacefully observing children at play, Jai Yun realized that humanity had achieved something remarkable. They hadn't just defeated the Ravagers, they were helping them evolve beyond their ancient hunting culture. The old ways are not the only ways, 8 Claw continued. Perhaps it is time for the hunters to learn new ways of proving their strength. Across human space, more Ravagers began to approach peacefully, asking to learn. The great predators of the galaxy were discovering that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or tactics. It was their ability to turn enemies into students, and eventually, into friends. Admiral Da Hyun stood in Earth's main defense control center, watching as thousands of red dots appeared on the giant screen. The Ravager fleet had finally arrived, bigger than anything they had expected. This was not a hunting party, it was an invasion force. They're calling it the Great Hunt, his communications officer reported. They're broadcasting their challenge to all human colonies. They say they'll prove once and for all who the true hunters are. Da Hyun remained calm. They had prepared for this day. Send the signal, he ordered. Operation Reverse Hunt is now active. Across the solar system, hidden defense platforms came to life. Earth's fleet emerged from concealed positions behind moons, inside asteroids, and within the atmospheres of gas giants. Every trap and trick they had learned from months of hunting Ravagers was ready. Sir, 8 Claw spoke from his advisory position near the Admiral. My people believe they are starting the hunt. They do not realize they are entering yours. The Ravager fleet split into 3 groups, just as Earth's tactical eye had predicted. They were using their traditional hunting formation, the same one humans had studied and countered dozens of times. All ships, execute Defense Plan Delta, Da Hyun commanded. Remember your training. We are not prey. We are the hunters now. The battle began with a surprise. As the Ravager ships approached Earth, they flew through clouds of microscopic robots. These tiny machines, developed using knowledge from captured Ravager technology, began interfering with their neural interfaces. First wave of Ravager ships is showing signs of confusion, a tactical officer reported. Their biological connections are experiencing interference. The Ravagers try to adapt, switching to manual controls. But their entire civilization was built around their neural interfaces. Without them, they were fighting at only half their usual skill. Launch the fighter squadrons, Da Hyun ordered. Thousands of small, fast human ships shot out from their hiding places. These weren't normal fighters. They were new vessels designed specifically to exploit Ravager weaknesses. Each one carried weapons that could disrupt Ravager technology while being immune to their attacks. They're trying to regroup, 8 Claw observed. But their formations are wrong. They're fighting like hunters, not warriors. They don't understand the difference. He was right. The Ravager ships moved like predators seeking prey, but they were facing an enemy that fought like defenders. Every time they tried to surround a human ship, they found themselves surrounded instead. Second phase, Da Hyun commanded. Show them what Earth can do. The moon's surface suddenly split open, revealing massive ion cannons hidden beneath the surface. Mars's polar ice caps flickered as hidden bases activated. Even Venus's thick clouds concealed human weapons platforms. "Your people have turned the whole system into a trap," Eight Claw said with a mixture of awe and pride. "This is not a hunting ground, it is a fortress." The Ravager fleet began taking heavy losses. Their ships, designed for hunting weaker prey, couldn't handle the coordinated defense. Human vessels moved in perfect sync, protecting each other, turning their formation into an unbreakable wall. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving surrender signals from multiple Ravager ships. The younger crews, they're refusing to fight." Eight Claw stepped forward. "Let me speak to them," he requested. Dahyun nodded, and Eight Claw's message went out to all Ravager ships. "Brothers, look around you. The humans are not prey. They are teachers. They can show us a better way. This hunt will only end in our defeat, but surrender can lead to victory through learning." More Ravager ships began powering down their weapons. The older captains fought on, but their crews were increasingly refusing to fight. They had heard stories from captured hunters about human civilization, about new ways of proving strength. "The main fleet is retreating," Tactical reported. "Only the diehards are still fighting." Dahyun watched as the remains of the great Ravager fleet pulled back. They had come expecting to find prey, but instead found a civilization that had turned their own hunting grounds against them. "Send word to all colonies," he ordered. "The great hunt has failed. Earth stands undefeated." As the last Ravager ships disappeared into deep space, Eight Claw turned to the Admiral. "This is a turning point," he said. "My people will never be the same. You have not just defeated us, you have shown us a new path." The great hunt had become a great lesson. The galaxy's most feared predators had discovered that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their weapons or defenses. It was in their ability to turn an entire solar system into a shield for the weak and a school for the strong. Lieutenant Jin Ho watched from the bridge of his ship as two Ravager vessels fought each other near the edge of human space. One ship bore the traditional red markings of the old hunter clans. The other had painted its hull with blue stripes, the new symbol of what they called the Learning Clans. Eight Claw, Jin Ho called to his Ravager advisor. "Are you sure we shouldn't intervene?" Eight Claw shook his massive head. "This is our civil war, friend. They must choose their own path." The battle before them was happening all across the galaxy. After their defeat in the Great Hunt, the Ravager Society had split into two groups. The traditionalists wanted to keep hunting other species, believing that defeat by humans was just a temporary setback. The progressives, led by younger hunters who had learned from humans, wanted to change their whole way of life. "Another ship approaching," the censor officer reported. It's a refugee vessel, filled with young Ravagers seeking asylum in human space." This too had become common. Young Ravagers, tired of the old ways, were fleeing to human colonies. They wanted to learn, to grow, to find new ways of proving their worth beyond hunting. "Grant them safe passage," Jin Ho ordered. "Direct them to the New Path Center on Mars." Eight Claw watched the refugee ship with sad eyes. "My people are in pain," he said. "For thousands of years, we knew exactly who we were, the greatest hunters in the galaxy. Now, we must find a new identity." The battle between the two Ravager ships ended with the traditional vessel retreating, damaged but not destroyed. The progressive ship had fought differently, using human-inspired tactics that focused on disabling rather than destroying their opponents. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving reports from all sectors. The Learning Clans are winning most engagements. They're fighting smarter, working together in ways the traditionalists never learned." Jin Ho nodded. It made sense. The progressive Ravagers had learned human military tactics, which were built on thousands of years of warfare experience. They knew how to fight as a team, how to protect each other, how to win without needless destruction. "Message from Earth Command," the officer continued. They're asking if we need reinforcements. No, Eight Claw said quickly. This must be our fight. But, he paused, looking at Jinho. Perhaps we could use more teachers. Jinho understood. Earth had been sending advisors to the learning clans, teaching them not just about fighting, but about culture, science, and cooperation. Every progressive Ravager ship now had human teachers on board, sharing knowledge that went far beyond combat. Another traditional clan has requested talks, the communications officer reported. They say they want to learn about the new ways. Eight Claw's expression brightened. They begin to understand. The greatest hunt is not for prey. It is for knowledge. As they watched, more refugee ships appeared in the distance. Each one carried young Ravagers who had chosen education over endless hunting. They were coming not just from the outer colonies, but from the deep space clans, even from the sacred hunting grounds of the traditionalists. We're receiving a priority message, the officer said suddenly. The Traditional Council. They're calling for a ceasefire. They want to negotiate with the learning clans. Jinho looked at Eight Claw, who stood straighter, his armor gleaming under the starlight. They have realized what humans taught us, Eight Claw said. That true strength lies not in domination, but in adaptation. Not in hunting the weak, but in helping them become strong. The news spread quickly across human space. The Ravager Civil War was ending not with a final battle, but with a conversation. The traditionalists had seen their young choosing a different path, had watched their best hunters turn into teachers, had observed their ancient society transforming into something new and perhaps better. Send word to the refugee centers, Jinho ordered. Tell them to prepare for more arrivals. But this time, they won't be refugees. They'll be students. As the ships of both Ravager factions began moving toward neutral meeting grounds, Jinho realized that humanity had achieved something remarkable. They hadn't just defeated the galaxy's greatest predators. They had helped them evolve, had shown them a new way to be strong. The great hunt is over, Eight Claw said quietly. Now the great learning begins. 5 years after the great hunt, Admiral Du Young stood on the observation deck of the new Joint Fleet Command Station orbiting Earth. Below him, ships from both human and Ravager fleets moved in perfect formation, practicing their patrol routes. The latest graduation ceremony is about to begin, his aide reported. The first class of the Joint Defense Academy is ready. Du Young smiled. The academy had been his idea, a place where humans and Ravagers could train together, learning from each other's strengths. Today would mark its first graduating class. In the academy's main hall, Eight Claw, now chief instructor of Ravager combat arts, stood before a mixed group of human and Ravager students. Each wore the new Joint Fleet uniform, designed to accommodate both species. When I first came to Earth as a captured hunter, Eight Claw addressed the graduates. I thought I had lost everything. Instead, I found a new purpose. Today, you carry that purpose forward. The ceremony hall was filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Many were from species that had once been prey to the Ravagers. They watched in amazement as former hunters stood side by side with humans, ready to protect rather than hunt. The Joint Patrol Fleet reports another successful mission. Du Young's aide continued. They stopped 3 pirate attacks in the outer systems. The reformed Ravager ships are especially good at tracking down criminals. This was perhaps the greatest change. The Ravagers had turned their hunting skills toward a new purpose, protecting the very species they once hunted. Their natural abilities and advanced technology, once used for destruction, now served to keep peace. Incoming transmission from the Galactic Council, the communications officer announced. They're ready for the ceremony's main event. Du Young nodded and made his way to the hall. Today wasn't just a graduation. It was the signing of the new Galactic Defense Treaty. Under this agreement, the Joint Human Ravager Fleet would become the official peacekeepers of known space. Who would have thought? A voice said behind him. It was Dr. Jai-Yun, now the head of Sinocultural Relations. 5 years ago, we were preparing for an invasion. Now we're preparing for peace. The ceremony began with a display that would have been impossible years ago. Human ships and Ravager vessels performed a complex dance in space, weaving between each other with incredible precision. Their crews worked together seamlessly, showing the galaxy what cooperation could achieve. The treaty is ready for signing, announced Ambassador Tawan, who had worked for years to make this day possible. Earth and the reformed Ravager clans will jointly protect all peaceful species in our galaxy. As Do-Young watched the signing ceremony, he remembered the first encounter with the Ravagers on that distant colony. How terrifying they had seemed then, how impossible it had felt to stand against them. Now they were Earth's strongest allies. Admiral, Eight Claw approached after the ceremony. The new defense grid is complete. For the first time in galaxy history, all major trade routes are under protection. The defense grid was a network of joint patrol stations, each staffed by both humans and Ravagers. They used modified Ravager hunting technology to track and stop any threats to peaceful shipping. And the education program? Do-Young asked. Expanding every day, Eight Claw replied proudly. We now have cultural exchange centers on 12 planets. Young Ravagers learn human history and science. Human students learn our hunting arts. For defense only, of course. The observation deck filled with both species watching their ships patrol together. Among them were graduates of the first class, ready to take their places as protectors of the peace. We have a saying on Earth, Do-Young told Eight Claw. The best victories are the ones where everyone wins. Eight Claw nodded. And we have a new saying among our people. The greatest hunt is the hunt for knowledge. We learned it from you. As the sun set on Earth, casting golden light across the assembled fleet, Do-Young reflected on how far they had come. Humanity had not just survived the galaxy's greatest predators. They had shown them a better way to use their strength. The age of hunting was over. The age of protection had begun. And across the galaxy, species that had lived in fear for millennia could finally look to the stars with hope instead of dread. The next class begins tomorrow, Eight Claw said. Shall we show them how humans and Ravagers hunt together? No, Do-Young replied with a smile. Let's show them how we protect together.